With the new college football playoff format starting next year, I think Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs have a chance to do something that almost sounds unthinkable, right? Unbelievable. But in my eyes, Georgia's just one of maybe 2 or 3 teams across college football that now may never miss the college football playoff. I cover Georgia, and I have since 2016. I cover recruiting. I know the type of players they bring in. I know what this staff is made of. I know the expectations for this program. And I don't see a year anytime soon where Georgia misses the 12-team playoff. If you don't know how it's going to be shaped, this came out, I guess, last week. The 5 highest-ranked conference champions will receive automatic bids into the 12-team playoff. The 7 highest-ranked teams remaining will round out the 12-team format. The top 4 teams will receive a first-round bye to the quarterfinals. So when I'm going through the teams in the SEC, and I know that there are 12 teams in the playoff, right? There's 5, 6 teams in the SEC alone that have a legitimate, real chance of getting into the playoff this year. Now, these schools aren't going to do it every year, and I know this is going to trigger a lot of Alabama fans out there because there's a real chance Alabama misses the college football playoff this year. I think they're not dead. They're not completely going away. First year, though, as the head coach, Kalen DeBoer coming in, they've lost a lot of starters, too many starters for me. And I know they brought in several big-time players from the transfer portal, but this is their tough games this coming season, right? They've got Georgia at home. Could absolutely lose that game. Right now, I think Georgia will beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa. They play at Tennessee, which is not that difficult, right? I mean, I know Neyland Stadium is thought of as this great, tough place to play. It's not. Alabama can go up there with a first-year head coach and win, but they could lose. Missouri at home is going to be tough. At LSU, a team that I think is going to bounce back, have a better season. Maybe not a national championship type of season, but better season. At Oklahoma. Oklahoma could be a little tricky here and there for some teams. And then, of course, they play Auburn at home. Who knows how that game goes? Every year, that game's just up in the air. They could lose 3 of those games. At worst, they could probably lose 4 of those games. If Alabama loses 4 games, they're not in the playoff. Let's talk about Texas. They have a little bit of an easier schedule. Texas has it made for them this year. They play at Michigan. Well, that might be in Dallas. I may have written that wrong. But Michigan's going to take a step backwards. Texas should win that game. They play Oklahoma and Dallas. Lost to Oklahoma, but they should be, last year. But they should be better this year. They've got Georgia. This is a game they could win, could lose. Then they just have Kentucky at home, and then they play at A&M. So if you're Texas, you have to feel great about this upcoming season. Ole Miss is going to be good. They've got Kentucky at home. They play at South Carolina, LSU at home, at Oklahoma, and then Georgia at home. It's not bad. That's manageable. Oklahoma, LSU, Tennessee, Missouri. I'm going to talk about all those teams in a second, but Georgia could lose 2 games this year. They're going to get in the playoff. I don't see a scenario where Georgia loses 3 or 4 games in a season anytime soon. Tennessee could lose 3 or 4 games this year. Florida will lose 3 or 4 games this year. LSU, Oklahoma, those are teams that could lose 3 or 4 games this year if they don't bring it every single week. And we don't know what it's going to be like for a lot of these programs, especially the new ones coming in, Texas and Oklahoma, having to play their best at a high level each and every week. There's no Houston. There's no Baylor. There's no Iowa State. There's no Texas Tech to break things up. Yeah, occasionally you might get a Mississippi State or a Vanderbilt, but for the most part, you're playing a solid, respectable program. I think Tennessee at their best could sneak into the 12-team playoff this year. They play at Oklahoma, could win that game. They play Alabama, could win that game. Kentucky at home, could win that game. And then they play at Georgia again. They're probably going to lose. So Tennessee has a chance to get into the 12-team playoff. And if they do, hang a banner. Hang a banner. That's a very, very good season for Tennessee. A very good season for Auburn. If Auburn's peak right now, because they're not relevant in college football right now, which is tough. I think college football is better when teams like Auburn and Tennessee are relevant. Tennessee is relevant right now, but they're not scaring anyone. Auburn is not relevant right now. They might be one day, but they're not right now. If they get into the 12-team playoff, whether it's this year, which I don't think it's going to be this year. I didn't even look at their schedule because they're not good enough. Auburn is not going to get into the 12-team playoff this year. If they do next year or the year after that, that needs to go in the stadium. That they need a flag or something getting to the 12-team playoff. That's a big, big deal. I think South Carolina's peak is probably to get into the playoff and lose a game. They should put up a banner. Florida, the next time they get into the college football playoff, that's a big deal. They should be very excited about it. But at Georgia, it's expected. And I don't know if they're going to miss the playoffs anytime soon because I know how they built this program. It's on a roll. I mean, they've won 2 out of 3 last national championships. Probably could have won it last year. Still might have been the best team last year. They just lost a game where you couldn't lose. They had a bad Saturday. But they don't have many bad Saturdays in a row. But again, Alabama might have a tough year this year, but they're going to bounce back. I do think he'll get them on the right track. I don't think he's going to win 6 national championships at Alabama, but the wheels aren't falling off. But I do think they could have a year where they could possibly miss the playoff. When they get back into the 12 team, it's hard for me to imagine Alabama and Ohio State and Texas the way they're going right now. I expect these teams to be in the playoff every year with Georgia. But I could see Michigan not making it in this year. Ohio State's going to be in. Texas is going to be in. But the rest of the SEC is a little uncertain. You can't tell me right now that Alabama's definitely going to be in the top 12. You can't say that about Ole Miss. You can't say that about Oklahoma. LSU has Southern Cal at South Carolina. That better than both those teams. They have Ole Miss at home. If they can win that game, then they just have to play at A&M. They've got a brand new coach. That should be a win. And then they have Oklahoma at home. LSU's got a nice little schedule for 2024. They play Florida in there, but I'm not even concerned with Auburn and Florida right now. They don't matter. I'm not going to waste my time looking up their schedule because they're not going to be in the top 12. LSU has a chance to be there. They're not going to right now, they're not going to be a team in my eyes that's in there every year. Most years, yeah, you're going to have Alabama and LSU. Maybe Tennessee will get there every other year, right? Maybe Oklahoma every other year. Auburn every once out of 3, maybe 4 years. It's going to take a good Auburn team to get in that 12 because if you lose 3 games in a season, then you have to get real worried about, okay, I know there's 12 teams, but 5 of them are conference champions. So I'm battling a lot of other teams for one of those 7 spots. And if one of your 3 losses is to another team trying to get in, it's going to be crazy. I'm excited because it's more football. I love tournaments, right? But this one, there's no excuse why Georgia should not be in the tournament every single year moving forward for the foreseeable future. Not a lot of teams can say that. If Alabama makes it in this year, I would expect them to be in it every single year. But you can't expect LSU to be in the top 12 every single year. Most years, yeah. But if you're Ole Miss or Missouri or South Carolina or Auburn and you make Florida and you make the top 12, you get into this big tournament, that should mean a lot. And that says that that's one of the biggest years that program has probably ever had. And it's one that they should remember and be happy about. If Tennessee makes the playoff, this is a 100% successful season. Same for all the other schools I mentioned, especially Ole Miss and Missouri, because they have the potential to get in there and consistently be a real player who can legitimately push to be in that top 12. They're always going to be around that bubble, I think. And that's if Lane Kiffin can keep Ole Miss improving and Eli Drinkwitz continuing to make that Missouri program better. Brian Kelly's got a lot of pressure on him. He needs to make that top 12 this year. And they could be in that boat where maybe I'm wrong and they are in that top 12 every year. But that means these other programs in the SEC are not, right? If there's 12 teams, I'm expecting 4, maybe 5 to be in every year. 5 at probably the most, 3 at the worst. But I'm probably expecting at least 4 teams from the SEC. The 2 playing in the championship should be automatic bids. If you lose in the SEC championship game, you should still automatically be in this top 12. And I'm not saying that because I'm biased because I cover the SEC. It's because it's that talented. Same for the Big Ten. If you play in the Big Ten championship with all those great schools and programs, it should be automatic. The 2 playing in those conference championships should both be in no matter what. But that's just me. And I'm sure it'll play out like that. I can't see a scenario where you lose the SEC championship and fall out of the top 12. Same with the Big Ten. But there are several SEC programs that are not going to be in it every year. But Georgia's one of the programs that probably will be in the college football playoff in this 12-team format every single year, probably as long as Kirby Smart's there. And it might sound crazy to a lot of people, But to Georgia fans, that doesn't sound crazy at all. They're already thinking about it. But I think a lot of fans from programs across the country might watch this and say, what are you talking about? That's crazy. They're not going to be in it every single year. I'm not saying for 100 years. I'm saying for probably the next 10, 15, however long Kirby Smart's at Georgia, they will be in the 12-team format. That's just where they are as a program. That's where he is as a coach. That's where they are talent-wise. No excuses. Everyone else has an excuse a little bit because they're not as good as the Dogs. They're not going to be in it every single year. I think I've gone a little too far now, but that's just what I think. To a lot of people, it might be unthinkable, but I think Georgia's going to be in this 12-team format for a long, long time, every single year. Yeah, thanks for watching this video. We've got more over on Dawg Post. You can sign up to our free newsletter. That link is down below. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope to see you on the website.